Well, Marathon launched early March with nearly 90,000 players on Steam. Today it's got fewer than 15,000, and in April alone the player count fell by almost 59%. By any metric, Season 1 has been a slow bleed. Yet Bungie are not going to be walking away. Instead, they've done something fairly unusual for a live service studio. They have written a long, honest letter about what went wrong and outlined a plan to fix it. That plan, centered on Season 2, represents a meaningful shift in what Marathon is about to do, and also who the game is for. So today we're going to go into all of the details, including the big pivot to PVE content, and I want to hear what you think about it. Well, to understand this pivot, you have to understand the original vision for Marathon. It wasn't designed to be easy. Bungie built it around a set of deliberate, harsh principles. Everything on Tau Ceti is potentially dangerous, preparation matters, and survival, not killing, is the core win condition. The idea was that the tension of possibly losing everything you brought into a match would make the moments of success feel genuinely earned. That vision produced a game with real atmosphere and a dedicated core community. I count myself in that community. We've got the fan art, the lore deep dives, all the YouTube videos. The people who fell in love with Marathon fell absolutely head over heels. But outside of the core, the game has struggled to find its audience. Well, in the post-Season 1 letter, Bungie has identified 4 key problems. The first is onboarding. After a short tutorial, new players are dropped into a hostile environment and expected to absorb a large number of systems, screens and mechanics quickly, while other players are actively hunting them down. Most players just don't get that time to learn. The second is progression, so for players without a consistent group of friends to run with, or without the hours to dedicate each week, the loot becomes a grind that goes nowhere. You kit up, you die, to a spawn rush, or to a player who got the jump on you while you were looting, to a poisonous plant. You inch forward so slowly that the end game feels permanently out of reach. Playing solo makes all of this feel worse. The third is the end game itself. Once you do get there, the experience at Cryo, Marathon's endgame map can feel chaotic in all of the wrong types of ways. Grenade spam, bubble abilities, sniper combinations with spawn rushing and lobby clearing to create an environment where tactical thinking feels like a luxury. Matchmaking compounds all of this, swinging between protecting new players so aggressively it causes really long queue times and exposing them anyway as the player pool thins late in the season. The fourth problem is perhaps the most telling. Sometimes, Bungie admit, you just don't want to sweat. You've had a few brutal runs, you just want to play, you want to decompress, and Marathon, as it stood in Season 1, offered no version of that. Every mode asks everything of you every time you play. Bungie is introducing 2 experimental modes that represent a fundamental departure from Marathon's original design. The first, arriving early in the season, is going to be predominantly PVE. Other players exist in the match, but the focus is shifted heavily away from player versus player conflict. And then we've got the second mode, coming in the middle of the season, removes PvP entirely. It's a crew-based PvE experience built around completing objectives together and carrying progress across multiple matches. For an extraction shooter, a genre defined by the threat of other players, this is a major shift. The tension that made Marathon compelling to its core audience is precisely what made it impenetrable to everybody else. These modes are Bungie's attempt to separate those two things, to let players experience the world of Tau Ceti, its lore, its atmosphere, its progression, without the ever-present threat of another runner ending your run and taking your gear. It is, quite bluntly, a play for a wider audience. The players who bought the game, estimates that put that figure somewhere between 840,000 and 1.38 million, and then they stopped playing. Well, these are the players that Bungie are targeting. So are the players who watch friends play and decide the stress just wasn't for them. Bungie are framing this very carefully. These are going to be experiments, they're not necessarily permanent additions, although they're not closing the door. They're testing whether the appetite for a more relaxed Marathon is actually there, or whether the tension is load bearing. Whether removing it makes the whole thing feel pointless. That is a real question as we go into Season 2, and Bungie don't yet have the answers, and neither does anybody else. Well, the PVE mode's the headline, but Season 2 is broader than that. Duos is returning via a rotating queue, addressing one of the season's more consistent complaints, that players without a full squad of 3 was a significant disadvantage with no real alternative. A new matchmaking system is being introduced, with the stated goal of finding better quality matches while giving higher level players more flexibility, and also addressing the queue time problem without simply abandoning skill-based protection for newer players. We've got the player's vault, where the players store their extracted gear between runs, is getting larger, reducing one of the more friction-heavy parts of the loop. Faction progression rates are also increasing, making the path to the endgame feel less like a slog. On the content side, we've got a new zone called Night Marsh, we've got a new runner shell called Sentinel, new weapons and equipment, and a revamp to the Cradle system. Basically the way you acquire and customize your runner shell, giving players more meaningful choices in how they build out their character. So taken all together, these changes, they don't reinvent Marathon, but they do specifically address a number of the reasons players cited for stopping to log in. Well, Bungie are also thinking beyond Season 2. Their letter sketches a roadmap out to Season 5 and into 2027. Season 3 is when the most substantial structural change is planned, a major overhaul to the onboarding experience, alongside big updates to Perimeter, the starting zone, and also another new runner shell. This is arguably the most important item on the list. The new player experience is where Marathon loses people before they've had a chance to find out if they love it. Fixing it in Season 3 rather than Season 2 is a gamble, but we're just going to have to see how that plays out. Season 4 is focused on deepening the extraction loop itself, adding more complexity and reward to the core activity the game is built around. Season 5, according to Bungie, is where the full ecosystem comes together, PVE, PvP and the hybrid modes in between, alongside further development of Marathon's strange and increasingly elaborate science fiction world. Whether the game retains enough of a player base to reach it, well, that is another question entirely. The most interesting thing about Bungie's Season 2 announcement isn't any individual feature. Bungie's been pretty honest about the diagnosis here. Studios rarely admit it in public that their game is overwhelming or it's underperforming. The grind is too real and there's no way just to relax and have fun. So Bungie did that, and the letter from the game director Joe Ziegler reads less like a PR document and more like a candid and quite specific update. So whether all of these solutions they've come up with match the problems, it's something that Season 2 is going to determine. The PvE modes in particular are a bet on an audience that hasn't shown up yet, so if they do show up, it's going to be really interesting. It might demonstrate that Marathon genuinely changed its course in response to what players are telling it. If they don't, the Steam charts is going to keep going in one direction. That is down. Personally, I really don't want that. I really, really love Marathon. Hopefully, all of these changes are going to bring in loads of new players and it's going to become a really, really healthy ecosystem. So I'm not the best at PvP myself. I quite like the idea of going around and just experiencing the world in a PvE mode so I can experience the lore and everything that comes with it. I think it's going to be really, really interesting and I can't wait to jump in. Season 2 launches in the coming weeks. We've got more details coming soon, including a full look at Night Marsh and the Sentinel shell. They're expecting the week of May the 25th. Well, let me know in the comments what you think about all these changes coming to Marathon. Are you on the hardcore PvP side and you don't want to see PvE, or are you curious about Marathon and you might want to jump in? And what do these changes mean for you? I would love to hear what you think. Well, that is it for this Marathon video today, and thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Marathon content here on Endgame Express. Thanks again. I'll see you real soon.